All right, we're here with Civil Disagreements with Jason and Brett. And Jason, it's been a little while since we've talked last, I guess, week and a half or so. So lots happened in the last week and a half. We're going to kind of maybe do some just questions that neither one of us are really prepared for or know, and just see where it goes. So, well, first off, the debates happened, right? So I'll throw open the question to you. Who won the debates? Did it matter? Did it move the nomination at all?
It's crystal clear who won the debates, in my opinion. Donald J. Trump. But the first night was it Elizabeth Warren. I thought she scored a lot of really good points. And frankly, I thought Tulsi Gabbard had a great showing once again.
She made a name for herself a bit.
Yeah, and well earned. Again, she's on the young side, but we were just talking briefly about having a heart, and I think she's got an incredible heart from what I can tell. And I'm glad to see her stock rising in politics.
You think that matters? Do you think she'll make any waves at all?
No, the media relentlessly attack her. It's so unfair how they treat her. It seems like she just filed a lawsuit against Google for suppressing her on Google. After both debates, she was the #1 searched candidate. But on platforms like Google or Twitter, they suppressed her down, even though the stats showed that she was crushing it and everyone wanted to know more about her in their trending lines and things like that. They suppressed her. In addition, Google canceled her ads during that very important moments after the debate. And so
this isn't fake news, right? This has all been proven.
Yeah, no. Her campaign filed a lawsuit against Google for tens of millions of dollars, if I remember correctly. I think it was 40 million, something like that.
Interesting. I wonder why Google would do that. You think they're in the pocket, or they're supporting another candidate or something like that?
It's, how could I can't,
like,
I'm not in a
position. Like what, 1% in the polls? Like,
yeah,
is it really
but
bad?
There's a reason though. Suppressing someone on Twitter trends. And I mean, that just empirical data just from my own observation shows that there's a lot of suppression going on Twitter. Unfavorable things get lower rankings than things it seems like are more, I don't know what the right word is, more palatable to Twitter algorithms. I think there's a lot of data out there on that. A good example is the Epstein murder that just happened, or alleged suicide.
Yeah, Freudian slip there for murder.
Yeah. I had nothing to do with it. But so one conspiracy theory that conservatives and Trump supporters toss out is the Clinton body count. And so when news surfaced that he was dead, Clinton body count was trending like crazy. People were putting that hashtag in all their tweets. But interestingly enough, with like 10% of the same amount of tweets, Trump body count was higher on the trends than Clinton body count, which had like 10 times the amount of activity. And it's things like that that make it hard for skeptical political observers to think that there's a fair platform going on there.
Yeah, if that's accurate, I mean, certainly that's the case. Since you brought up the topic, I guess it's kind of funny because did you see Trump's little press conference today?
I did not. Tell me about it.
It's pretty interesting. So just FYI, so this is Tuesday, August 13th, 11:30 Mountain Time right now. So it's just like an hour ago, but he had a pretty wide-ranging news conference, or not news conference. It was just like outside the helicopter before he got in, but talked on a bunch of different issues. Some we should definitely delve into some, but he brought up they asked him about the Epstein murder, and Donald Trump had retweeted something from, a conservative.
Terrence Williams, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And the question is, basically that guy was intimating that the Clintons killed Epstein, right? Engineered. That's basically the implication. And Donald Trump retweeted it. And
I tweeted, the President of the United States just retweeted this. And it's shocking to see a president retweet something that speculative.
Why?
Why is it shocking to see? Well, we've never, in my lifetime, I've never seen a president so willing to get into the mud and to throw around allegations, whether there's any evidence to substantiate that. At the same time, I think we briefly even discussed this. It's a terrible day for the United States of America, the day that Epstein died. By all accounts, it seems like he was a pretty despicable human being. But it's a travesty for our justice system. It's an embarrassment as a country. Other countries looking at us must wonder what the heck is going on with the American system of justice if such a high-profile individual with ties to so many powerful people could get away with killing himself after it was almost obvious to anyone half thinking about when he was finally arrested and put into jail. Everyone thought, I think, he's probably going to die in jail. And not die after being sentenced, but die before trial. And I think it was like almost a common thought, whether you gave it any credence or not. The fact that it actually happened is just horrific.
Well, maybe that people were only thinking about that because there was news that he was on suicide watch or whatever. So maybe that brought it more to the forefront. I mean, I don't know that I really thought until I heard that there was a good chance that he was going to kill himself.
You thought he was going to go to trial and everything would be flushed out at trial?
Before the suicide watch stories came out. I mean, how many people kill themselves in jail? Especially
in federal jail, it's supposed to be really low. I believe.
I would assume it's super difficult to do. So, does that help stoke the conspiracy theories about maybe somebody, killed him or helped him kill himself or something like that? Obviously it probably does, but I don't know. Do you think so you said it was shocking that Donald Trump retweeted that, though. What do you think about that? Like, should he be doing that?
Well, I mean, I think it's only fair to consider his actions in the context of him being accused for the last 3 years of being an agent of Russia by every reputable source that, how many countless reputable sources were pushing that conspiracy against him and his family, month after month, year after year. So for him to wade into conspiracy theories isn't, I guess, that shocking. It's just like the office of the presidency doing that is shocking. But it's equally as shocking to accuse an elected president of being a Russian agent, I think.
Yeah, true. So he's just willing to delve into all these conspiracy theories because he feels like it was done to him, and so therefore he should just wade into all of them and stoke them up regardless, and that's cool.
Well, I don't think that's the reality. I think the reality is he's had an inclination to wade into conspiracy theories long before he decided to run for president. So I
with it, or is he just like a kind of a media whore that he just loves kind of like being controversial and having the media cover something? So he loves wading into that stuff because he loves media attention.
Or I think maybe it's a little bit more sophisticated than that, and he likes to try to inject, to the best of his ability, a narrative that is favorable to his political power. Right, and that would explain why he would retweet something like Terrence Williams' kind of almost comedic, accusatory tweets about Clinton. Did you see the actual thing he retweeted, the video?
I didn't watch the video. I saw the tweet briefly. I got the gist of it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. So I saw just on Facebook and Twitter, it seems like whatever side of the political aisle that you're on, you think that either Epstein was involved with Trump and or Clinton, and that he died. Like I saw certain Clinton supporters or liberal Democrats basically saying, oh, he must have had something on Donald Trump. That's why he died, or somebody maybe helped kill him or kill him. And then you had the other side, the Trump supporters and conservatives were saying, oh, the Clintons, he had something on the Clintons and that's why he died. What do you think about this, like, knee-jerk reaction by everybody to look at these events through a political lens rather than just kind of logically figure out one thing I tweeted, so just to throw it out there, I mean, Jeffrey Epstein was clearly a sex addict, and maybe it just flat out made him miserable not to be able to screw young women every day in his mansion for the rest of his life, and that made him miserable and he couldn't live like that. Seems like a pretty plausible explanation for why he killed himself, but yet you have all these other people looking at this completely from a political lens and using it to buttress either an anti-Trump or an anti-Clinton message. I think it's pretty despicable, honestly. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think that has probably always been the case throughout history, but with the internet and things like Twitter and YouTube, these conspiracy theories can get more of a herd mentality going. For sure, I'd like to try to look at the Epstein situation or disaster, whatever you want to call it, from just a citizen's perspective. And I'm not casting blame to the Clintons or to Trump. The blame is to the system. It's to the correctional facility in Manhattan, and it's just a travesty of justice. A high-profile case like this, you want to bring this to trial. You want all the evidence to get out. You want this guy to testify and get as much information as possible. I found it interesting that I believe they didn't raid his island until after he died.
Maybe there was some legal reason they couldn't do that or something.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think that's proper. It
was the jurisdiction of the island. It was probably under some other country, right?
I think it was like the British Virgin Islands. Wherever his mansion is in the Virgin Islands, whether those are the British or American Virgin Islands, I don't know.
Yeah.
But just like such a high profile case. I mean, in many.
He would never have testified, right? I mean, it's probably very unlikely that he would have testified.
Right. It's possible. Yeah, that's right. You'd want to pressure him into doing something like that, or at least trying to get a reduced sentence by naming other people. When you're connected to so many powerful political actors around the world, and then you're involved in something allegedly as despicable and corrupt as what Epstein was involved in, it's a real shame that somehow the system broke down and let him die, however that happens. I don't know. I would think there would be surveillance cameras. I would think they would want to release those immediately, not showing his actual death perhaps, because that's too graphic, but at least showing that no one came to and from his cell, or showing him preparing his bed sheets to hang himself, or whatever the case was. It's just a shame. It seems like every time it seems like very, very often there's so much mystery surrounding American political controversies. There's so much lack of transparency. And while it's great to be an American and we have more transparency than a lot of countries, it seems like we're lacking, and this is a good example of it. I would have immediately released that information to try to show that no foul play other than the negligence involved in the suicide was the case.
If they had the camera evidence, I would assume would be ideal. Who knows if they even have it or not. So Bill Barr is supposed to be looking into it, the Attorney General, so we'll see what happens, right? So just to let you know, so what Trump said in his news conference, though, they asked him if he was right to retweet that tweet from the conspiracy theory. And he said, oh, he's a really popular pundit, and he's a Trump fan, and so no, I don't think there was anything wrong with retweeting it. That's basically, they asked him again, like, is that proper to do that for conspiracy theories? And he basically just said the same thing. Oh, he was a popular pundit, and he's a Trump fan, so it's fine. And then,
but again, we'll go back to that same point, though, right? Look at who's asking those questions, and then see if they have a legitimate question. Absolutely, but let's look who's asking those questions and see if they haven't deleted their history, how many of them were propagating Russiagate and Russia conspiracy, and he's an agent. So these are the same people. They like to have it both ways. They love to throw these total asinine conspiracy theories into the universe, and then if anyone else has a theory about a mysterious death, they're a conspiracy theorist. It's like, you guys are propagating Russia for years.
So yeah, we can, talk about Russia and that whole, the Russiagate stuff, but you have to at least say there was enough smoke coming from Trump Russia.
Like what?
Well, you had we can kind of get through the whole history. Maybe it's going to get us off on a tangent and stuff, right? But clearly, you had the Steele memo or Steele dossier saying that Trump had, that Russia had stuff on Trump, right?
Those are also known as conspiracy theories, literally conspiracy. But anyway, okay, so you had this like ridiculous dossier that...
Right, Trump was trying to put a Trump Tower in Moscow. There was evidence that he was still working to try it. Now, was it working super hard? No,
You know what the evidence is?
Yeah, that Michael Cohen called up like the main switchboard in the or some shit.
Give me a break. We have a couple, the $100 billion a year in intelligence agencies. Like, they could probably get to the bottom of that pretty quickly.
Right. You had the meeting in Trump Tower.
But then you got to add in the Fusion GPS components to that meeting.
Yeah, but still, the meeting did take place. They were over things that...
They didn't discuss Trump Tower. It was with a record producer. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, there was a little bit of smoke to at least warrant some questions, right?
You mean like all the smoke that warrants conspiracy theories, where they're like, there was a man on the grassy knoll. Look at that. I mean, that's called smoke, Brett, but it's also, to a lot of people, called bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally, get the gist of it. So Trump said, though, as far as the Epstein thing goes, he did stoke the flames a little bit on the Clinton stuff. So he left it with, they asked him something about whether he thought Clinton was involved or something to that effect. And he said,
what did he say?
He said, well, just take a look at it. Bill Clinton was on his plane 24 times. He said that he was only on there 4 times. Why did he say 4 when clearly the flight logs say 24 times? And I'll tell you what, if they find out that he went to that island, apparently that island was a really bad place. I don't know. I've never been there before, but I hear it was bad. And if they find out that Bill Clinton had gone to that island, well, we're going to have to see what happens or something. And that's kind of where he left it.
Okay, pretty standard Trump. It is weird that I do believe that it was something like Clinton said 4 or 5 times he had met Epstein, and it was more like 20-something times. If you want to talk about like liars and stuff, like Bill Clinton's kind of shown himself to have a willingness to deceive and lie to people.
Yeah.
Even under oth. So
it's quite an interesting battle, Trump versus the Clintons, right? It's like a kind of a liar's battle to a large extent. I mean,
yeah.
Well, let's get back. So we've kind of exhausted the Epstein topic. So back to the original question was, who won the debates?
Who do you think won the debates?
Joe Biden, clearly.
You mean Joe 3003?
Let me ask you this. Did Biden do better than the first debate?
Yes. And you were right to point out that people like to see like a comeback.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he quite pulled that off, but he didn't like self-implode. So I guess that's a success. He's still got a long way to go.
Let me ask you
More
this.
gas he has.
All right. So you concede that Biden did better than the first debate. So he's getting better. He exceeded the expectations.
Yeah, he's been at this since 1972. He's getting better.
Yeah.
Great.
Second question is, did anybody else have a huge standout moment like Kamala Harris had in the first debate against Joe Biden?
I thought the first night Warren scored many, many points.
But she wasn't really going after Joe.
No. Oh, you mean against Joe?
Well, I'm just saying, like, did she have anything that you saw replayed on media for the next week?
Not really. The second debate lineup was much more compelling, I think, for the networks.
Right. Did anybody have a shot against Joe that was replayed over the last week or two?
Yeah. Oh, you mean from the debates? No, I don't think so. I think they thought his senility was enough.
Okay. Did anybody have interactions where they were between themselves, not including Joe Biden, just between two other candidates that was replayed over and over for a week and a half or so?
There was the Tulsi Gabbard attacks on Kamala Harris. That got quite a bit of replay, I think. Anything else? It doesn't really come to mind as far as really leaving an imprint in the news cycles in the last week or so. I don't think so. Did you catch anything that I might have missed?
Tulsi Gabbard, definitely the biggest one. Bernie had the "I wrote the damn bill."
Uh-huh.
That was kind of replayed.
Oh, and then that bullshit line from Cory Booker about like drinking Kool-Aid or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was like
kind of funny, but yeah,
joke.
Played a little bit, but yeah, no, inconsequential, right?
My favorite thing from the last week was when Joe Biden said to a crowd, "We choose truth over facts," and the whole crowd clapped and applauded. It's like such a great encapsulation of his supporters, his grassroots supporters.
I'm assuming you're saying that because Trump tweeted that out. So that.
Oh no, I knew about it right away. The same day as the day he said that poor kids aren't any dumber than white kids or something like that. The poor kids are just as smart as white kids, I think was the quote.
Yeah, I mean that's an arguable thing. I mean, I don't think that's a completely stupid thing to say.
It's pretty stupid to say. He did quickly catch it. He stumbled for a second, and then he said, or rich kids or black kids, or, he knew he made a mistake at least.
Well, there's an implication, and it's actually backed up by psychological research, that if you are poorer, that you grow up in stressful environments, it does have a debilitating effect on your prefrontal cortex.
But why are you comparing that to white kids?
I think he's trying to go after an implication that, he's probably trying to go after white supremacists, basically. That's what he's trying to, put the two issues together and go after a white supremacist for saying that whites are better than, minorities or something to that effect. So he's trying to conflate probably Donald Trump with white supremacists. That would be my guess.
I think white supremacy is going to be the Russiagate 2.0. That's going to be the whole lead up to the re-election. It's going to be white supremacy, day and night.
That's interesting. Prediction. I mean, the whole issue of race is definitely seeming to be one of the primary issues, or at least primary covered news stories or discussions that we're leading into right now. That could be true. So getting back though, so nobody had big moments in the debate. Basically, there were a few big moments between other candidates, but not directly really with Joe Biden. And Joe Biden did better than he did the time before. So would you say the debates really were inconsequential, or it maybe just shuffled the deck chairs among the lower tier or non-Joe Biden candidates, basically?
I think our previous analysis of the last debate was right. Like Joe Biden needed to have at least a good debate. If he had another poor performance, that really would have hurt his chances, I think, is a pretty fair assumption. And he didn't do that. He didn't. I mean, his closer was pretty awful. I honestly think he's got to have some sort of cognitive impairment going on. He used to have gaffes. He's known for gaffes, but those gaffes were every couple months or years even. And now it seems like those gaffes are almost every time he steps to the mic, and they're forgivable. People make verbal mistakes, but so repetitively makes me wonder. I don't know.
I think it's just
I don't know.
I mean, maybe he is a little slower because he's getting older. That's very possible. I think from me watching it, it seems like he's a little more uncomfortable in a format where you have to come up with a 30 to 45 second, like pithy, great response. It feels like his brain's moving like this. And he's like trying to get like his talking points out, and he's just not very good at it.
Right.
And I've always felt like just historically, Joe Biden's always been better at a one-on-one interview that allows him like time to respond and like time to think, and like doesn't have to rush out like a quick 30, 45 second response. I just don't feel like he's very good at that. So that's my take on it. So not everybody's good at every format, right?
Like the Bernie Sanders interview with Joe Rogan that you sent me. These debates are set up with such like an anti-intellectual ethos to them. They're just reality TV, 45 seconds to talk about nuclear war or global climate change. And it's just ludicrous. It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
And I thought Bernie Sanders,
have that many candidates. You basically screwed yourself into a point where you only have 30 to 45 seconds if you're going to allow everybody to talk on a particular issue,
Right. And the DNC, after the embarrassment of 2016, wants to have a more fair system for the primary candidates running. They don't want to appear to favor anyone. So they're trying to adjust to an inclusive debate style or whatever. But at the same time, I thought what Bernie Sanders said was probably a great idea, which is they should get commercial-free television time individually to do whatever they want with it for a period of time that will capture the American people so they can evaluate this person.
Yeah.
And I thought that's much better than these 45-second clips. I mean, Jesus, we can't even talk in 45 seconds, and we're having a casual conversation. We're not talking about we're not trying to become decision makers for a nuclear arsenal or, for a multi-trillion-dollar economy.
Different controversial issues that aren't settled yet,
Yeah.
You have to defend and be nuanced about, I thought that was pretty interesting that Bernie said that. He kind of talked about Ross Perot and how Ross Perot used to just buy airtime and pull up his charts and start going through why, his point of view. And it's pretty, I think that would be a service for sure. Give a candidate 30 minutes of airtime, or whatever, and let them go through their point of view. It's actually funny that a lot of candidates don't really seem to do that, even like on their Twitter or their Facebook pages. Like that seems like what you should do, right? Is do a 10, 20-minute video on healthcare and go through with charts throughout the video, have it like, here's, what we spend, here's what Canada spends. And like, if that's your point of view, and go through and explain the issue, give your anecdotes or your case studies of people having trouble, and then, lay out your case for what you should do. Like have like 6, 7 of those on all the issues to like 10, 20 minutes a piece. It doesn't seem like any candidates do that at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't spent this cycle looking at their individual websites. Sometimes they do that on their website. So, it will say something like Joe on the economy or.
It's funny. So I was talking with a friend of mine, and this was like 2 months ago, and I was like, oh, what do we were just talking about the race, and he was like, oh, I like Bernie, man. I really liked his website. He's got a lot of detail on there. And I was like, really? Interesting. So he had a lot of detail on his healthcare plan and everything. Oh, yeah, lots of detail. I'm like, interesting. I'm going to pull it up here. So I pull it up on my phone, and it's like 3 paragraphs of like blatant overview. And I'm like, what is this, bro? Like, I thought
it's like a $14 trillion plan or something.
I'm like, there's not anything here. What are you talking about? There's no detail here. So, maybe it's better now. I don't know, but I thought it was pretty skimpy at the time.
Yeah, I like your idea. I think it's great. What they do instead is to commercialize it. They do, CNN town halls where it's like.
I like those.
Yeah, but
those are good formats.
I think it's a much better format to say, this is the amount of time that you get to talk about the issues that matter to you. Not we're going to like lead the questions. I mean, that can come in time when they do interviews, but the town halls, I just seldom do I see them get real tough questions or real tough follow-ups. It's kind of just the same fluff in between commercials.
Well, it's kind of the same that, a candidate just giving their own airtime would have. At least they're trying to like lead the conversation and just different issues and keep on track. You can't, just talk about whatever you want.
But the candidate, if you gave the candidate their own time, they could have some sort of like pedagogical or educational production of their time so that they can try to convey the essential messages of their candidacy. Whereas when you're doing the Anderson Cooper Town Hall, you get like funny questions and important questions followed by a commercial, and it's not very educational. I very rarely leave a town hall thinking, wow, I really understand this candidate's candidacy now.
I don't know. I think, I haven't watched like all of them. I, watched parts of a lot of them. Like everybody was raving about Pete Buttigieg in his CNN town hall or whatever. But overall, I think the format's at least better because you're at least allowing, the candidate several minutes to talk through an issue a little bit better rather than these 30 to 45 second things. But yeah, Bernie's idea of that. And I guess they do that in other countries too, where the state or they actually give them airtime, to do that the issues. So maybe you have like the last 4 or 5 candidates are allowed to do that or something on different channels or whatever. Or
I think we could go without seeing Sean Hannity or Rachel Maddow for 4 nights in a row. I think the country would be fine if the viewers got to instead see 30 or 60 minutes of Tulsi Gabbard explaining her foreign policy or her military experience or a healthcare plan. Or Trump defending, some of the, or whatever, defending his most important agenda items would be really beneficial, I think.
Yeah. So would you agree, though, that so since Biden outperformed, didn't have a glove really laid on him that was a lasting impact, he was kind of prepared for some back and forth, a little sloppily, but basically it got him out of the woods. Other candidates had back and forth, like Kamala got knocked down. Wouldn't you agree with that? Like Tulsi basically knocked her down a peg in those debates and really put a limelight on her prosecutorial background and whether she prosecuted too many marijuana crimes and stuff like that. So you got to say, if Kamala was coming up a little bit, maybe she got knocked down a peg. Who does that benefit but Joe Biden?
Donald Trump. But I also think your biggest threat.
Not running in the Democratic primary though, but that's fine. You could say that, but like if we're just talking about the Democratic race,
I think your biggest threat to our bet is Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I would say, honestly, after listening to the Bernie Joe Rogan podcast, I think Bernie may be the biggest threat to Joe Biden, actually.
Yeah, I just don't. I like Bernie. I respect Bernie. It's possible. I mean, if it's like Nixon's reelection, And the left goes far left. It's possible that they go for someone like Bernie. He, as far as identity politics, probably, I could see Bernie having taking some share of Joe Biden. But again, I've been honest with you. As of today, I think I'm probably going to lose the bet to you on whether Biden gets the nomination. I think the big power brokers are all falling in line behind him, and they're just telling him every day, don't mess this up. You've got the path to the nomination.
So right now, basically like some of the, recent polls, Biden's basically, pretty solid there.
34, 33, something like that.
Yeah, Biden 33, Warren 14, Sanders 20, Harris 9, Buttigieg 5. That's like the Politico poll on just the nomination. But you have like Iowa, Biden at 28, Warren 19, Sanders 9 in Iowa. Biden up 21 in North Carolina, Biden up 7 in Pennsylvania, Biden up 7 nationally, Biden up 11. Just going down the list here, I actually don't see anyone that Biden's not leading by, 7 to 15 points, roughly.
He just got a big endorsement in New Hampshire, too. I think unless his like cognitive deficiency becomes clear as day, or he makes some sort of catastrophic mistake, or somehow an effective attack about Hunter Biden and the business transactions really captures the Democrats, which I doubt happening, I think Biden's very, very likely to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you always get those narratives, though, of like, oh, the candidates surging, like, Bernie or Warren. Warren will probably have a surge, would be my suspicion at some point. But
yep,
she's probably going to be taking votes away from Bernie if she's surging in the polls,
Right. It's interesting. If you add Bernie and Warren supporters together, who are probably pretty similar ideologically, that equals about where Biden is.
Yeah.
So it's like Biden's in such a strong position. Like he's divided up his main opposition basically between Warren and Sanders, neither of whom I think will drop out early. And so I
they're in it for the long haul, I think. Yeah.
So Biden's going to have only sabotage will stop him.
They're probably, and the Democratic rules are even better. Well, like it's better for Biden, because I think you have to, as long as you get 15% of the vote, I think maybe it's 5. It's either 5 or 15% of the vote in the state that allows you to get a proportional share of the delegates, essentially. So,
interesting.
Yeah, it's something like that. So you have to get above that threshold, but then you're going to get your 15 or 20% of those delegates at that point. So you're going to continue to fight on at that point. They're going to be, the John Kasich of the, nominating process, just right at the end saying, oh, I got a chance because we haven't had the convention yet.
So, what was that other guy's name? Evan McMullen or something from Utah?
Oh, that was in that ran in the general?
The former CIA guy from out in Utah ran for the Republican nomination too. He just hung on and hung on and hung on.
Yeah, I think he ran in the general too or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's looking pretty strong for me, buddy.
Yeah, it probably is. But again, it's still many months. There's going to be a lot of rhetorical combat for sure. I think you're absolutely right. There's going to be that media-driven surge of so-and-so candidate and things like that. I wonder, I don't know the facts. Do you know what number of people are going to be in the September debates? Like how that's going to play itself?
It filters down because I saw a article about Bill de Blasio saying that he, the daunting task of qualifying for the next debates wasn't going to keep him out of the race. And so apparently it's, a bigger threshold. You have to, maybe get up to 5% or something to that effect. I don't know. But yeah, those lower tier candidates at 1% aren't going to be in there, from what I understand. Or maybe they'll have a 2-tiered debate. Maybe they can, kind of like the Republicans did, the B team gets to debate all together, the hour before the big debate where the top tier candidates all get to be together. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder. We should look that up for our next podcast.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, Jason, we were planning to talk about this tweet here. So you had sent me this, and we were talking about our last one where Donald Trump and Elijah Cummings, we had a big podcast about that little battle. And Donald Trump put up really bad news. The Baltimore house of Elijah Cummings was robbed. Too bad. What do you make of this tweet?
It's Donald Trump being Donald Trump and pushing back against the claims that Baltimore is this wonderful place to be, and that Rep. Cummings has been an effective representative of Baltimore for many decades, and just on the heels of that whole controversy, his house gets robbed or something, or burglarized. It's you can't write drama like that. So it's
pretty coincidental, right?
Yeah, I hope so. Anyway, but yeah.
What do you think about just the fact that it's kind of like almost wishing, harm to another, even just human being, let alone political rival, right? Like you're wishing actual harm comes to that person's, property, which if somebody's getting robbed in the house, like it's a very big likelihood that, maybe his wife was in there. Maybe there's physical violence at that point. If something happens, like, is it above the pale for a president who's the chief law enforcer of the land to kind of make fun of somebody's property, house, person being harmed?
I'd say when you call a city infested, and then the response is that your claim was somehow racially driven, that, you're going to, when then that person's house gets burglarized after you were just saying it's crime infested, and also it was in light of the fact that no one was actually harmed. Representative Cummings allegedly yelled at the person who was like trying to get into his home and scared him off just with his voice. So no one was, it's not a good situation. No one wants to be put in that. But the aftermath was there was no property damage, I don't think. There was no harm. So the president was using the opportunity to do what he does best, which is inject narratives that are politically favorable to him, or at least incite the other side enough to make his supporters think the other side's insane.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something to be said, though, for kind of like being above the fray and like, what if he had said like, oh, I'm so sorry that, Elijah Cummings had his house broken into. I hope him and his family are okay.
And let's work together to clean up Baltimore.
Yeah. What if he had done that instead of making fun of the situation?
I think part of Trump's ethos is that he is a president of the people, and he speaks like his supporters speak, and he's an American before being a politician. And so that's why I think he communicates in that style.
No, I disagree with that. So, yeah. He's an American before a politician. Like, isn't being an American kind of being a good neighbor and watching out for the other person? Being, an American means that we're all a community together. And if your neighbor was getting his house broken into, you wouldn't speak to them like that, right? You're basically saying he's speaking like his supporters do. Are his supporters dicks? Like, because if your neighbor was getting broken into, would you go up to him and say, "Oh, that's too bad, man, that you got broken into. Too bad," or would you say, "Oh man, I'm sorry, that you were getting broken into. I hope you're all right.
So I'm not saying it from that perspective. I'm saying he's an American before a politician in that he feels free to speak his mind. And I would liken.
I'd say he's being a politician before an American in this circumstance, not the way you're saying it.
No, I think he's okay. So I understand the semantical discrepancy.
He's being very political about it. If anything, he's only being political about this rather than a human being or an American.
But I would kind of equate it to someone who is, the city manager of a town that's having a sewer problem or having a septic tank problem, have their the what's it called, the poop come up into their house after they're denying that there's any problem to the septic tanks for all the citizens. It's more like that situation where he was saying, and a lot of people were saying, Baltimore's got these really big problems that you seem to conveniently ignore and prosper from decade after decade. And then just as that debate was getting off the ground, the dude's own house gets burglarized. It's the same as denying there's a septic problem and poop overflowing into your bedroom.
Except one's a person and one's not, and one's unpredictable and the other one's not, right? Like a person breaking into a house could have some really severe psychological problems. And if and when they're confronted in that house, if they happen to get in, you could have physical violence. You could
sleep illegally, right?
Yeah. So trying to make light of that potentially dangerous situation, kind of different than poop coming up a toilet, right?
Well, I would just say Cummings and his supporters were denying that there is a very deep systemic problem in Baltimore, right as this representative.
Do you think that's coincidental?
Yeah,
I think it's almost too coincidental.
It's one of these things where it's like shocking, right? It's like
why do you think? Why is it so shocking? Do you think it's possible that that just the media discussion over Trump versus Cummings and the crime level coincidentally has somebody go rob Cummings' house?
I looked into it and I didn't see if they found any suspects, but I think it was more like a street vagrancy type situation. It wasn't like a vandalism situation. It wasn't someone, at least from what I saw, there was no evidence that they targeted Representative Cummings. They were trying to get into the house, according to Cummings, or at least they were on the property, and he shouted at them and they fled. So it doesn't sound like it was like a Trump supporter trying to get Rep. Cummings. I think it probably was a coincidence in a city that has an infestation of crime.
All right. Fair enough. I've got some others here. Do you have any, we were going to try to do a little Q&A back and forth. Do you have any zingers you want to throw at me?
Hey, you want to meet my new rescue dog?
Yeah, man.
Up here, girl. Say hi to, we're not sure what her name is.
No? Hey.
Might be Lagatha. It might be Portia. We're not sure.
She's cute, man.
Yeah, she's got a great temperament. She just got up from a little nap.
Oh, yeah. She looks very chill, actually.
She is. She's got a lot of energy, though, but her temperament's awesome.
Yeah?
Really good girl, yeah.
The dogs that are just, like, jumping up on you and, like, always want to play, like, they kind of wear you out a little bit. My dog's chill like her. She looks pretty cool, though.
Yeah, she's cool.
Man. She's going to be a cool companion for you guys.
Yeah, we're psyched about it. Just good all around. Okay, go back to sleep, little one.
So I got another zinger for you, unless you want to throw one at me, dude.
Bring it.
Okay. So I don't know if you saw just today that the stock market was rallying pretty good. Don't know what it's doing right now, but
it was up like 350 last I checked.
It was up over 400 at certain points, actually close to around 500, give or take. Reason being, though, is that Trump had, via tweet several weeks ago, said that they were going to put another 10% tariff on a 10% tariff on consumer goods this time coming from China. And market tanked pretty quickly over the last few days, or that few days afterwards. Kind of rallied a little bit because it was probably oversold a little bit, but then was going down again. And then Trump today says that they're going to delay the 10% tariff until December 15th due to the Christmas holiday shopping season, and he didn't want to do any harm to American consumers. So therefore, they were going to delay the tariffs until December 15th on these consumer goods. Isn't that kind of backwards? Isn't Trump's wasn't his point of view that the tariffs were good for America and that we were going to be making billions of dollars from the tariffs and everything? So why are they going to harm consumers? That's kind of anti what his message is. And doesn't this kind of show like the weakness of that position? Because is he basically saying that the American consumer, and therefore America and its economy, cannot withstand these tariffs, so they can't even go through with them as a negotiating tactic because it's going to be too harmful? We were talking about this a little bit yesterday, right? Like, would American consumers withstand a recession and millions of job losses in order to sit through tariffs on China to make a point against them to try to get a favorable trade agreement? What do you think?
I think, it's a distinction between a battle and a war. And sometimes you fight battles to draw your enemy's resources when you know that in the long run you can have a war that you're going to be victorious. And so I think what Trump's decision-making here is that the tariffs would cause a short-term impact that would be negative to the United States. Of course, trade wars, that's what happens. Both sides get hurt by them. But the long-run strategy is that I think he's confident in what I'm picking up from the White House and government officials is that while both sides would get harmed in a trade war, America will emerge victorious from that in the long run. And so I think he's just kind of playing with that negotiating tactic with China, saying, hey, we're going to drop this sanction on you, and then saying, we'll pull it back for a little bit, give you some more time to rethink your strategy. But it's now dangling out there as this could happen. And he knows it will hurt American consumers in the short term. I mean, I think that's like guaranteed, right? Of course it will. But it's about a long-term strategy.
I mean, he won't say that. He'll say that the current tariffs haven't hurt American consumers at all. And he's probably right about that because China devalued its currency to like offset the tariffs, and companies are taking them. But most of the business community, and they could partially be wrong, but most of the business community believes that this next tranche is pretty hurtful. I mean, if you put a 10% tariff on iPhones and high cost consumer goods, that's going to be a huge hit to the margin. It's definitely going to hurt the companies because if they have to either take a higher price, that's going to be a tax on consumers. So at the end of the day, Trump's putting a tax on consumers.
But he's basically saying, get your stuff in America.
Which is a higher cost. And a lot of it can't be made and isn't even able to be made. Like, for example, CNBC's had a lot of these types of people on over the last, several months. Like there was an American bike shop, huge bike company, right? And they basically said, you can't buy a bicycle made in America. Like it doesn't exist anymore. Like China has basically put all of its resources over the last 25 years into developing these manufacturing hubs and these places where you can manufacture a lot of goods for a cheap amount of money and get them out fast. And that's where like CNBC went to Vietnam, which is kind of like going to be a beneficiary of business leaving China. You go to Vietnam, but they kind of went through all of the infrastructure And Vietnam doesn't have the infrastructure to manufacture these kinds of things at that scale. I mean, you need highways, you need like 5-6 lane highways to be able to get goods in and out of these massive factories like that. And that takes like decades to build those kinds of areas and train the workers and just develop the sewer lines and the buildings and everything like that. I mean, it takes decades to develop those kind of things. And China's, done that over 20, 25 years. So like the bike manufacturer was like, you can't buy a bicycle made in the United States. Like all of the parts that you need, like you'd have to basically wait for factories to be built, and that's not going to happen. Like they're not going to just spring up like, oh, China's going to, have trouble making bike parts. We're going to go invest, $20 million in a new bike part factory here in the United States. Like it's not going to happen, and nor can it happen very quickly. So, when you're talking about stuff like that and you go down the board from all of the things manufactured in China very quickly, very cheaply, actually, it's interesting. You're working on some stuff business-wise. I mean, have you found anything out about like shipping costs and prices to buy things? Like, what have you found in your research?
It's incredible. The products from the United States are 10 times as expensive as what seems to be identical products made in China.
10 times as expensive.
About 10 times as expensive.
So can you have like a example, like a
flag. If you buy the flag in the United States, it's going to be closer to $10 to $15. If you buy the flag from China, it's $2.20. Things like that. This is, identical item. It's
possibly even better made in China potentially. Like for the amount of money that they've put into their manufacturing facilities and everything, like it's very possible that they could be better quality too, right?
So the owners of our company, it's been one of the big debates we've had for the past couple of weeks, is we really want to be a company that sells only goods made in America and shipped from America. But we want to also offer our customers competitive prices for products, or even undercut our competition with a commodity like, an item like a flag. But there's this irony, right, of like getting an American flag from made in China, right? But, or for items like that. So that's been a big debate for us. So what we've decided is that we're going to be transparent with it, and all of the products, we're going to try to display where they were made so that the client can make their own, or the customer can make their own choices.
Kind of do one of each. Do one American made, one China made, or whatever.
And we'll have a page for only made in America products, so they can scroll there too.
That's a good idea. I'm curious, can you find any others that are like Vietnam made or some other country? And how do those price out differently?
The prices are very, very similar to China, but the quantity of products are, less than 10%. China just has flooded the market with available products for cheap, whereas once in a while you see a product that's made in Vietnam or the Philippines or somewhere else.
Right. So interesting. That's like an interesting point just on trade in general and like the benefits of trade. Trump always says like we're losing $500 billion to China every year. Basically, we have this trade deficit with them, right? So we buy goods from them. We pay money for that, right? And then we get the goods. But we're buying more goods from them than they are of us, right? What do you think about the trade deficit, and does it matter? Like, is it a bad thing? Should we not be doing that?
I think it's all about, it's a very, very long-term geopolitical positioning, right? So in the short term, that stuff doesn't matter as much, but year after year, tens of billions of dollars after tens of billions of dollars start to add up, and your geopolitical adversary gets stronger and stronger, and you're
are we saving money in that respect though? Like,
in a way, but that money is then being utilized to strengthen an adversary.
But the money we're saving is theoretically going to other things though too, right?
Yeah.
Just like if you're selling that $10 flag to the consumer versus the $2 flag, what are you doing with the other $8 that you're saving by buying the Chinese one?
Right. But when you spend that, when you buy the $10 one, that helps the real estate market in the United States, the employment market in the United States, the shipping market in the United States.
Do we need help with that right now?
What's that?
Do we need help with that right now? I mean, unemployment's 3.7%. It's the lowest level in 50 years right now. Like, do we really need help with that?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably not. I think a large. I'm not sure of the intricacies, so I don't want to weigh into something that I don't know enough facts to be confident to speculate about. But I mean, there's agricultural components, there's intellectual property components.
So interesting point is we're basically like pissing off China, right? And they're starting to retaliate against us. And I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, corn dropped dramatically. It was down like 7% or something like that. And the implication was that, China was buying a lot of agriculture from the United States, and they need that. We have a lot of arable land, et cetera. But that is one of the things that we were manufacturing. And Trump kind of says it all the time, like they're going to start buying a lot of our agriculture. And he kind of makes a big deal about that. But, they already were, because they already need the food, right? And we have a lot of arable land, great farmers, et cetera. But they're starting to not buy as much. They're starting to shift their buying to other places like Brazil and whatnot, because we're pissing them off, right? So the question is before, weren't we in a good relationship where we were saving money by buying cheaper goods that they were making well and fast, et cetera? Now, granted, were there problems? They have like the drugs that they were manufacturing, flooding the markets and stuff like that, sure. But overall, though, we're buying cheap, good, pretty good quality stuff from them and getting a lower price for them. And they were buying, agriculture from us. Wasn't that just a fine relationship for us to save the money and them to buy what they were buying, instead of now we're pissing them off and now they're, going to be selling us more expensive stuff and buying less of our farm stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. How do you? Hey, look, it's your dog.
Yeah, she came in.
She knows how to work that door pretty well.
She does, yeah.
Hey. I think what they say of trade wars, right, is that they're a race to the bottom. That both sides just get harmed if it continues, they just continually harm each other until one submits, and just their economy gets broken if it gets that far into the trade war. And right. It's not like there's a happy victor. Both sides get hurt in the process, but the one who remains standing can then start dictating the rules moving forward a little stronger. So, I really don't know how far along or what intentions the United States has towards a prolonged trade war. My inclination is that there's some very important issues to the United States, like intellectual property rights, like currency values, that we don't feel like we can budge on. And so we are provoking China into this type of confrontation to try to negotiate or fight out until the solution, right? Is that your assessment too?
Yeah, I mean, the business community would probably say overall that they just want to know the rules of the road, and they're generally they have a lot of problems with like the intellectual property and that kind of thing, theft of that. So there's issues that we need to work out, and China's pouring, allowing illegal drugs to be sold, in the United States. So there's definitely issues to be addressed. The question overall, though, is like Trump's whole thing about, well, there's a trade deficit and they're basically stealing billions of dollars from us every year. $500 billion is what he says. So a trade deficit is really just spending money. So I heard this analogy from a well-known investor on CNBC, and I'll use it for you. When's the last time you had a haircut?
I'm the wrong person to ask, buddy. I cut my own hair, or my girlfriend cuts it for me. No joke. The last time I didn't even get a haircut for my trips to DC. I don't think.
No.
It's probably been like two or 3 years since I've gotten paid for a haircut.
It's been a little while. That's funny though.
Yeah.
All right. So 2 or 3 years ago, when you got your haircut, how much do you think you paid for it?
$25 probably.
And so you paid $25 and you got your hair shorter, right?
Yeah.
Which apparently was valuable to you at the time.
No, I do it myself. How's your analogy working out?
Why did you do it at the time, right? So here's cutting to the chase, though. Is that relationship? If we can use the other examples, but basically, if you go get your hair cut, you're handing over $25 to the barber. You're getting a haircut, which is valuable to you at the time, right? But you have a trade deficit with that barber because you traded your money for their service of the $25, right? And so you're always going to have a negative trade balance with your barber or those people that you're paying for services, right?
Unless you do it yourself.
What's that?
Unless you do it yourself. Make it great again. You know what I mean?
True. Well, that would be the cheapest if you could do it yourself for free, right? But you invest in a $10 razor. You invest in a smart, beautiful girlfriend who can cut your hair the way you need it to be, and I think I just won that debate. That's funny. Maybe that's a good spot to leave it on there, man.
Just one more thing. Can I buy out of the Joe Biden debate?
You can. How much do you want to buy out for?
Where would you?
You're going to owe me $300 if and when he wins the nomination.
So I'd give you $100.
You would give me $100.
Yeah, he's polling at 33, 34. I think I would.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels fair. It kind of takes out the gamble a little bit. It's kind of fun to gamble on it. It's weird to be rooting for him to stumble and say dumb things. Because I do think he's got the institutional support, and that the only way he's going to lose is either the.
Don't you love rooting against him though? I feel like if you bought out of the bet, that would provide less incentive to root against him, and you would be less happy as a person.
Yeah. I have mixed feelings about Joe Biden. There, for a long time, I think he was one of our favorite senators on the Democratic side. And there's things, but yeah, I definitely, to be honest, like rooting against him as a candidate. But I would say this though: if he was the president, I would support him. So yeah, I don't know. Well, let's think about the bet renegotiation, but it's fun just to talk about anyway.
I think I would take the $100.
Yeah, it's pretty fair. I think it's pretty fair at this point.
So I'll say if you want to buy out, I'll take the $100, and we'll call it. No, we'll probably end up putting another bet on somewhere or another. But if you want to buy out, I'll let you buy out for $100 right now.
Can we wait a week?
What's going to happen in a week?
We can renegotiate.
I don't know about that. I'll take the $100 buyout. There's no renegotiation. or we can let it ride for the 300 if he wins.
I'm kind of inclined to let it ride, even though I was very curious if you'd buy out for 100. I was thinking about that earlier today. I thought 100 was pretty fair. You lock up a win, $100 locked up, no risk to you at that point.
Yeah, and we're not gonna know for almost a year probably the full results of the primary. Pretty close, but roughly a year.
It's just from my betting perspective, it's a weird spot for me to be in, to where I see all of the conventional wisdom lined up to say this guy's almost got it in the bag, and it's only gaffes or some sort of opposition research that somehow hasn't been paid attention to yet that would take him out. And
here's the thing though, and this is what I find, and I try not to do it, is when you root too much for one candidate, whether it's pro-Trump or anti-Biden, you really box yourself into an intellectual alley where you start looking for only the bad things.
Absolutely.
And so if you're uber pro-Trump, you only look at his pro side of the issue and you don't try to be as unbiased about it, or you're looking for what did Biden screw up on as opposed to where he did good and why maybe he ended up doing better than you thought or something like that. So that would maybe free you up a little bit as opposed to rooting against him.
I do think we're pretty fair, though. Maybe I didn't bring out anything good that he said, but to be honest, my impression, and so maybe this is right, maybe it just was a biased impression, so correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression of his debate performance really was just he didn't make a ridiculous mistake. I can't really remember anything he said that I was oh, he is a great candidate. It was more he didn't mess up. And that's all that I remember. I don't know if that's my bias or that's actually your impression too.
Yeah, I guess the most memorable parts for me is, one, he had a little bit of an exchange with Kamala Harris, and he came back over and he really tried to hit her over her record.
But then what does that say about Biden's candidacy? That he could take on Trump maybe a little bit?
Yeah, I think Biden's going to be way more comfortable taking on Trump, personally. He's not – that's a tough thing for him because he's really fighting an I'm not liberal enough battle right now. And I don't think he really likes being there. He'd rather be on the liberal side of the issue fighting a conservative or somebody arguing against those issues. So he's kind of in a tough position, honestly.
And he's actually said as much, I think. He said, these guys are my friends,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and he's having to argue against things rightly so, like Medicare for all, but he's also, from the Obama administration, and he has to defend Obamacare. And so now he's trying to come up with a middle ground, strengthening Obamacare type of healthcare plan, but he's got to be against, the ones that want Medicare for all. So, which reminds me, maybe not today, but we should do a healthcare specific podcast. Maybe we'll do that next and really dive into it a little bit more. But so it puts him in an awkward position. He'd rather be on the other side. I think he would be way more poised on his feet, frankly, in a Biden versus Trump debate over those issues. I think he would settle right in. Right now, he's very uncomfortable, and I think that's part of his problem and why he's stumbling around a lot.
But some of those stumbling arounds come even when he's on, giving a stump speech, not necessarily in the debates. I'm not saying this to be derogatory towards the guy. I think he's having cognitive issues, and I'm not saying that to disparage him. I'm saying it as an actual empirical observation. The frequency seems pretty high up there. Trump's about his age, and Trump has his own malfunctions when he speaks too. But Biden, and maybe, it's even on the stump speech.
It's not similar though, man, in a lot of ways. they stumble around. Trump repeats his words, repeats sentences over and over again. And,
Yep.
Trump's not the best off the cuff speaker by any means. They're different though. Joe looks a little unsteady. So I'd agree. I think he's been a little, I expected him to perform a little bit better than he has been performing. So
I thought he'd have some zingers, again, saying why he's the man in this race to win. And he tried to, but like none of them, he did come across more prepared, but again, it was because the bar was set quite low.
Here's the thing though, man, I think is recency bias is a big thing, right? And the more Joe Biden's in the race and going through these debates and coming up with those one-liners like, oh, man, I found the perfect line on my stump speech in Iowa, and now I'm going to use it again, and it's going to kill in New Hampshire. The more people are on the road and the time in the process goes, they're going to get better and better at this process. And the thing is the Elizabeth Warrens of the world and Buttigieg, they have to be great early in order to even elevate themselves up to the level of being in the conversation. Whereas Joe Biden doesn't have to. He's just got to continue to trend up a little bit and get a little bit better as he goes. And people's recency bias by the end of the process will be like, yeah, he's totally fine. He's good. They'll forget all about the early gaffes. So I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Yeah, unless they keep continuing at the frequency they are, I think.
Potentially, yeah. If he continues, yeah.
So let's see, is the next debate, it's in September, is it going to be gaffe-free? Is he going to be able to get through a debate without stumbling over? And of course you're going to stutter, I'm sure we have in this conversation, and we're not under a lot of pressure. But some of those gaffes were kind of whoa, what's going on? You didn't even know how to get in contact with your own campaign.
Yeah,
we don't want you in charge of our military, man.
Yeah,
that's a key point you might have wanted to remember, and that was your closing speech, and disconcerting for his candidacy. But
that was weird for sure. He should have definitely practiced the closing speech, practice the opener and the closer, and
But sure. Isn't it wrong? What you're supposed to do is basically have a memorized opener, a closer, or at least a familiarity so you can kind of off the cuff it in the time period, and then also have memorized a bunch of talking points. So right when you get to the podium, you can write them all down and you've got them to remember and refresh your recollection. And, and I think he probably did that, but when he's and maybe it's his childhood stuttering coming to the surface again. I mean, there's something going on though. It's not the same frequency as anyone else that I've seen running for president at a high tier.
Well, I think he's got Bernie's got it. Maybe him and Bernie are both pretty close to the oldest. I mean, they're definitely the oldest of the entire field.
But Bernie doesn't seem to have that kind of cognitive flubbery or whatever.
Bernie's been pretty solid for what his message is, I would say, overall. He's been pretty good. That's why
he's pretty sharp.
That's why I think maybe he is the dark horse that could beat Biden.
What odds would you put on that? To win the nomination is what you're saying?
Yeah.
What do you think his chance of that? Not 8-1, 9-1, 8-1
to win the nomination?
Yeah.
No, I think he's got a better than that chance. I would say, I think it's more 4-1. Yeah.
Wow. Gotta think about that.
Maybe there's an arbitrage there.
That could be that.
But I don't think I would bet that he's going to win though. See, I wouldn't risk that bet.
But even if you were given the right odds?
Well, if I was given the right odds, I would, sure.
You risk 100 to win 400 or something, right?
I don't know. I'd have to make it contingent on Biden not winning or something like that.
What do you mean by that?
Like if
Bernie wins, Biden can't win, right?
Right. Well, so if Biden doesn't win the nomination, Bernie will win. That would be the bet.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah. That changes the odds substantially.
Yeah.
I wonder about Buttigieg.
I think he's too young, man. I don't think he's
but
polished.
Man,
I like him. He's going to be if Joe Biden were to win, he's going to probably be like a really good cabinet secretary potentially. But yeah, I don't see him getting there. He needs Biden supporters to drop out of supporting Biden for him to do well, and I don't think they're going to risk Buttigieg against Trump. I think
but that's
the Biden supporter is comfortable that Joe Biden can beat Trump. I think they're very confident of that. They would have to be really unconfident. Like Biden would have to have a lot of like, what's my name again? Like, or, you know.
Did you hear about the Parkland thing you just did?
Well, no.
He was talking about how honored he was or how important it was to meet with the Parkland kids when he was vice president. And Parkland happened in 2018, Joe. Like, you hadn't been vice president for well over a year, almost a year and a half at that point. And like, so then his campaign said, no, he met with them. He was a private citizen and he just confused it. But it's, you know, like how important a meeting was it when you didn't even know whether you were in the White House or not, or
right.
Like,
maybe he could have also meant like one of the other, like
he was specifically talking about Parkland specifically.
Yeah.
So, you know, and so my only point there is when I talk to my real smart liberal friends, what I keep hearing from them is they don't feel confident in any of the primary opponents right now to take on Trump. And
which is kind of funny, man, to some extent, right? Like it's very I think there's definitely, here's the thing is there are some people that probably could easily, well, not easily, but could easily be the Democratic nominee and do a hell of a lot better. So I listened to the Pivot podcast with Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway, and they're pretty liberal, but they love Michael Bennet, who's Colorado's senator. So I know Bennet pretty well, and Bennett's super smart, and he's not very, he's not like an uber liberal. He's against Medicare for all.
Oh, he's almost sounds like the conservative on the stage.
Yeah. He would be super tough against Trump. He would be.
And he has no chance to win the nomination.
Yeah.
Like close to zero, but I couldn't agree more. If he was the Democratic candidate, if they went back to the kind of, like a more business-oriented candidacy with a liberal agenda, it would be very hard to beat him. Plus, he's so bland in a way that Trump's attacks would probably counter. They would probably like
backfire.
Yeah, they wouldn't really land on a bland candidate like him.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, oh, look at how stiff he is, and like put together
policies. Why are you talking about my posture? Like, let's get back to the real topic, Mr. President. And like the president would look kind of silly doing that. Yeah. But if you've got a guy like Joe Biden, who's like, personally, I think Joe Biden is a bit of an actor. He's a bit of a showman.
Yeah.
And so
he likes that. He kind of likes being the center of attention too. Historically, he's always loved kind of being that guy, like center of the room kind of person,
But that guy is a lot easier to attack than like a gray man.
100%, because he thinks that if you attack him, he wants to come back over the top with like an even better like zinger against.
And I'm in the mud with the pigs. Good luck.
Yeah, which frankly, it's going to make it a more interesting race. Because if it was Michael Bennet versus Donald Trump, Bennett would probably easily beat Trump.
I think he would probably get like 65% of the vote.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why, like, some people were – I saw somebody on Facebook say, like, can we just nominate John Kasich and call it good? Like, you know, like the
Do you
John
think,
Kasich
like,
candidate would probably just sail through a general against Trump.
I was talking to my girlfriend. We were wondering if the Democrat strategy for this campaign is like what I call the make it stop strategy, where they just keep ramping up the anti-Trump rhetoric and everything he does, and things like Charlottesville, which I think is a BS attack on the president. Could he have handled that better rhetorically? Yes. But was he endorsing neo-Nazis? Absolutely not. He made it plain as day that he was not endorsing them. There were some people who were at that rally to try to keep the Robert E. Lee statue, and that wasn't about racism. He made a distinction between those people he called very fine people and the despicable people that were neo-Nazis. He made that plain as day, and so it's BS to attack him like that. But I think the Democrat strategy is this, like, make it stop strategy, so that by November 2020, there's the swing voters are just like, even if they're inclined to like Trump and his policies, are just like, make it stop. I'm going to vote for someone else, just so this, like, white supremacy, Russia hysteria just stops.
Yeah, totally. They're just totally want to be done with the whole issue. And yeah, I think that's Trump's biggest Achilles heel, is that he is so, like, the podcast I just mentioned, Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher, like, I agree with them, because they were like, can't we just go like a few days without hearing about Trump? Like, there's some leaders, like, you know, like Angela Merkel, like, how often do they talk about her in Germany, right? Like, do they hear her every day opining on every issue? Like, and it's just a nonstop, like, constant controversy. I was sitting with a few people and a couple months ago, and they're Republican, gonna vote for Trump people, and they were just like, both of them were like, man, and these are like older guys too. These are guys that are like 65, years old, and they're gonna vote for Trump, but they're like, I just wish he would just shut up. Like, I am tired of listening to hear him talk about everything and, like, himself and his ego, and, like, I just wish he would shut up. And you just, you get the right candidate or Joe Biden in there, and a lot of those Republican guys like that may just, lean over and vote for them.
That's possible. I think that's the Democratic strategy with Biden anyway. Or with any of their top tier candidates, frankly, is just the, like, make it stop campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's the next year.
I mean, that's going to be, Joe Biden's whole running message is like, I'm here to beat Donald Trump. That's my only message. And we talked about that in, like, our first podcast or whatever. Like, that's his message, is I'm just the best person on paper. And if I can hold my words together, like, I'll be the best person. But like I said before, I think Joe Biden, if and when he does win the nomination, will be very energized, and he will be on very familiar, comfortable footing fighting against Donald Trump. He's not on that footing fighting in the Democratic nomination right now.
Right. I agree with that. Awesome conversation as always, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to be interested to see how you title this one.
I'd probably title it with several different things.
Yes, some hashtags, or not hashtags, but keywords. Yeah,
I probably should do like some show notes maybe too, just where the discussion is and where the start is. So anything else before we sign off here?
I don't think so. Everything's
good. Yeah, next time maybe we'll do a healthcare talk. So, but there's always tomorrow. Donald Trump could say something on Twitter later today. So,
I look forward to the healthcare debate, because I know that you're going to have a ton to teach me. So that's going to be really interesting for me. I'll try to prep up so I'm not completely ignorant, but I know you're really well versed in the area, so I'm excited.
Yeah, and you're unfortunately increasingly more so. So I'm sure you'll have some stuff to talk about too. So cool. Well, this is Civil Disagreements with Jason and Brett. We'll see you next time.